welcome to CS264 Software Design. This is Lecture 4, and this is Lesson 2. In this lesson, we're going to have a look at file handling using C#. It's quite a short lesson, but we're going to see the basics of reading, writing, and appending files. So when we think about file handling, we often think about these three core activities. So, a file and dealing with the contents of that file. But there's more to file handling than that, really. We have to think about the file existing within the file system itself. That means we also need methods to check, for example, whether a file exists, whether we can delete it, whether we can copy it, whether we can move that file, all within the application that we're using. C# provides lots of methods in order to be able to provide these kinds of activities and more using the file class. And that's provided by the system.io namespace. So it provides access also to a class called file stream, and that provides a stream for a file. And this file handling within C# supports both synchronous and asynchronous read and write operations. Now, we saw a little bit about synchronizing synchronous and asynchronous reading and writing of streams and files when we were working with Node.js last year in JavaScript. So something similar applies really when you're looking at C# file handling. But you can find out more about file and file stream in these two really core and very readable documents from Microsoft. You can click the link here to go to file and click the link here to go to file stream. Okay, so let's use another class called Streamwriter in order to be able to write to and read from files. So I have a very basic example here, and I'll run the demo in a few minutes. It's based on one from Microsoft itself, and it demonstrates how to use the file class in order to check whether a file exists, and then depending on the result, either create a new file and write to it, or open the existing file and read from it. So it assumes that we have this folder available called temp, and that's where we're going to write it. So we can do this using makedir.temp from the working directory if you're using Linux or MacOS, and it'll be slightly different. You'll have C:\temp or /.temp from wherever you are if you're using Windows. Alternatively, you can just go to Visual Studio Code, and you can create a new folder within Visual Studio Code. You can see one here, and you can create a new file. And so I use those, and you'll see that for the application I'm running, I have a directory called temp within the directory structure I'm working here called test file. Okay. So let's have a quick look at the program. So we're using system.io. We need to have this in order to be able to get access to the file methods. We're creating a path to the file. So the file we're going to use is called mytest.txt. Again, it would be different if it's Windows. I'm using a verbatim string here so that I don't have to backtick or backslash the various characters here, like / and dot and so forth. So first thing we're going to do is going to use if the file exists on this particular path here. So that's a path to the file, and the path includes the file name. If the file does not exist, we'll create the file, and we're going to use the Streamwriter to create a file here. So we're creating a stream that writes to this file, and it's like a file handle that you've seen in other languages. So we use file.createText path to create this text file. We're going to make it a Streamwriter, and we're just going to call it SW, and we're going to write to the stream, hello and world, and when we're done, we're done. We can also then open the file to read from the file, and we'll just open the file that we've just created. So we can use Stream Reader again just to create a stream. We had Streamwriter previously here, and we will again open the text, this file again. And the previous one we created text. I created a text file, open text, open the text file, and we have this string s. We're going to read it while there's something to read, and then we just write the outputs of whatever, the contents of whatever we write that's assigned to the string s. So it's very straightforward to text handling. So I would copy this program if you're trying to do this. So I could copy it, go to your Visual Studio Code, and paste it. I have it here. I also give some examples on how to actually create a new directory using .NET new console test file, and we can make the subdirectory if you want to do everything from the command line as well. Maybe you're using Mono under Linux or something, you might want to do this. Okay, so copy it as I've done, and then the first thing that happens is that the file will be created. It'll write the string, and then it'll read the string. So it will only create the file if it doesn't exist. Yeah, so we can then have a look at the contents on the command line. But we'll do everything here within Visual Studio Code. So let's head on over to Visual Studio Code and have a look here. So I have my program. It's here. It's an exact copy. You'll notice I have my directory temp created. There's no file in here. So I expect that the file will be created and it will write the words hello world to it. So let's run this. And we get hello world. And so it's no problem at all there. It's done that. And you'll see that if you check the file over here, it's my test. Okay. Now it's reading the contents of the file. So we can verify it is actually doing this by just changing the contents of the file, mytext.txt. We'll save this and then we'll execute the program again. And I expect that when we execute the program the next time, this section here, the file does exist, so we've set it up to do nothing if the file exists. So it doesn't do any writing if it exists. We just move straight on to the block that allows us to read, and we'll do this. So let's run it again. And we get hello world, which is the file that we saw earlier. Okay, so here it is. So that's a very straightforward text processing, text file handling using C#. Now let's get back to Atom. Okay, so we use Streamwriter. We can also use file stream. Okay, so we can provide these file operations using file stream, and that provides method for reading and writing bytes from a file. So again, we have a typical example of reading bytes and writing bytes to a file. It's a nice example program from Microsoft. It's a bit more complex in the earlier Streamwriter example, because it reads bytes to and from a physical file rather than just writes strings or text. So look, we can copy again. We can just copy. We don't even make any changes. We can copy all this stuff here. Let's copy it, and we should be able to replace it, save it, and just run it and see what happens. Yeah. So we have some interesting output here. Here's some text, more text. Here's a line. Here's a bunch of characters, and these will all have been written to the file as well. So in addition to the console. So let's quickly work through this program here and see how it goes. Okay. So if the file exists, delete the file. So this file, and we know it did this because the file mytext.txt from our last example contained hello world. And if we were to run the program and watch this corner over here, we might see the file disappearing and then appearing again. So then, okay, so now we want to create the file again. So we create the file, using file stream this time, and then we add some text to it. Okay, so this is a method that's available. So we add text, and this was the method that we had created here, or the function, for this file string, and we just generated some string. We converted it into some bytes, and then we wrote the bytes because this particular approach using the file stream requires us to be able to deal with bytes. So we added all this text, then we wrote a whole bunch of individual bytes, so that's fine, and then we opened the stream and read it back again, and again we started reading bytes. Okay, so we have this byte array, and then we were looking at UTF-8 encoding here, so we create this variable here, and we read the bytes, and then we just dump the bytes. Okay, so that's how it works. So file stream is very useful as well, and you can check that out. So we have lots of ways. So C# provides us with file stream, Streamwriter, Stream Reader. It also provides us with text writer and text reader. So when you begin investigating all the C# methods, it may seem a bit complex because there's lots of ways to perform the same activity. Read and write files really is our fundamental activity here, but there's lots of references to file stream, Streamwriter, and so forth. So here are a few things to remember. So system.io.stream, that's some abstract class to provide standard methods to transfer bytes, okay, to the source. Okay, it's a wrapper to transfer bytes. Classes that need to read and write bytes from a particular source must implement the stream class. Okay, so file stream then reads or writes bytes to a physical file, any file. Okay, and again, file stream is derived from stream. Stream writer and stream reader, they're helper classes, and they therefore writing string to or reading from a stream by moving characters into bytes. Okay, and it can be used to write strings to different streams using file stream, memory stream, etc. There's also something called binary reader, and Binarywriter. And again, they're more helper classes, and they read and write primitive data types from bytes. And we have text writer or text reader, and it's used to create and read sequential series of characters to and from a file. Very similar to Streamwriter, in that they allow the user to write or read sequential characters or text in a file. They don't require a file stream creation for the operation, so that's useful. So you can have a look at, here's a very simple program here that uses TextWriter, and it writes something to a file. Okay, very, very simple. Create the file using the path. We didn't have a separate path variable. It's very simple. And here's one that reads, and we see a little bit later if you want. Again, they're all built into system.io. There are other file operations. You might want to append all lines, so you can use this this method to append lines to a text. Okay, we look at environment.newline. That allows us to be able to create line breaks. Okay, append all text. You know, it opens a file and appends text. Write all text. That opens the text, overwrites the file, and adds all the text. File stream again opens a stream and writes. Stream reader opens a file for reading, and delete that allows you, for example. There's some example of file handling within the operating system. So there's lots of stuff to do with files. Lots of methods. You could work through this document at your leisure and see, or you could reference these documents from Microsoft. There's a couple of nice, there's a nice Stack Overflow question here on the difference between file stream and Streamwriter. But it's worthwhile looking at the examples, copying and pasting as I did, and work from there. Okay. So in summary, we learned about the different ways to read and write text files using C#. Sometimes we're just writing strings. Sometimes we're just writing text. Sometimes we're just writing bytes. We're converting from strings to text, bytes, and then lots of moving back and forth. We didn't look at binary processing at all, but we don't need it for this particular module. So we haven't really covered either in detail issues related to synchronous and asynchronous reading and writing to streams. You could look that up yourself. You've done it before, I guess, with Node.js, so you understand the topic. So you might want to work out how to do it yourself. You're going to have to do some research by yourself as well if you want to do more extensive stuff. But this is all we need for the module and to be able to have it bounded a little bit for this particular module CS264. Thank you very much for watching.